So
All
I
right.
can have this up here.
We are live. Do we have people in here?
Let's see.
Oh, yes. 76 live.
Nice.
Everyone, when you get in here, type in the chat. Say hi. Just we haven't used this software before. And okay. Good. We got people in here. I'm glad this is working. Holy crap. I'm extremely glad this is working because as you guys can probably tell from the sign-up page, the registration, all of that was a shit show. So I'm just thankful that everyone's able to get in. So welcome, everyone. I see everyone spam in the chat. It's fucking awesome to have everyone here. Excuse my language as we go about this. But we have our panelists here. We have Devin, who is the support guy. Some of you have talked to him directly. You can see the Modern Mastery hat he's wearing. We got Joey Justice. If you're in Modern Mastery, if you're on Twitter, if you're anywhere, I'm sure that you know Joey as well. So we have a lot planned today. But first things first, Devin, you wanted to go over something from support. Feel free to cover that really quick.
Awesome. Hi, guys. Hope everyone's doing well. So I had talked, looks like not everyone's in here. So I might reiterate this at the end of the call as well really quick. But a few people had reached out regarding having 2 discount codes to get Digital Economics Mastered. Our system can only support 1. So we were only able to say, hey, use 1. That's changed. If I told you can only use 1 coupon, that is still true, but we made a new coupon for you guys. So go ahead, send in a message. It's been very busy, so I can't find everyone. But if you send in a message, I can get that new code over to you guys, and you can get the full discount and get into digital economics.
Yes.
That's it.
And yeah, and so the other thing is that like this Sprints is like a part of Digital Ec, but it's standalone. I don't want it to seem like this is only to push people into digital economics. That's not the case at all. That's actually the entire reason we are running these sprints, is to just be able to give out the information in a practical way. So first things first, love seeing the familiar faces in the chat. That's fucking awesome. Next thing is we're going to start this up. Boom. Nice. Okay. So as an introduction, we will walk over all of this. We're going to walk over this in a very streamlined fashion. So on the left, just to reiterate who this is for, it's for those that don't want to be trapped in a box by choosing a quote-unquote profitable niche filled with people you don't like. So we're taking a different approach here. I've gotten multiple questions about like, will this work for agencies? Will this work for people that already have offers? And yes, it will. But we want to focus on building an authentic and preferably dynamic personal brand, to the point of just not being so limited by the labels that we put on ourselves, whether it be like the service we offer or just what we do for a living. We want to show that we are people. And so the next thing is that this is for those that are just starting out and want a business model that evolves with them, right? So this is both beginner friendly and it can help with people that have been in the business scene for a while and want to leverage building a personal brand, right? So you're at the starting point of business as a whole, or just the starting point of having a personal brand. So the next thing is for those that want to leverage, monetize, and scale their knowledge with the internet. We're not going to be really talking about physical product e-commerce. This is mostly for people that want to go digital product, high profit margins, low cost of replication. You know that Naval quote from his thread. So that's kind of what we're going to be basing a lot of this around. We're not talking about monetization specifically, but that's what this is going to be biased towards. So just keep that in mind. The last thing, it's for those that are okay with shedding limiting business ideologies, focusing on mastery and learning new things, right? So this is for people that love researching their curiosities, the skills that they have. As an example, like a fitness YouTuber they have to have a finger on the pulse of the fitness market in order to continue putting out good information, good content, and bring novel perspectives and personal experiences to those things, right? So you should be studying and talking about the things that align with your skills and interests. And just to reiterate right here, focusing on mastery. What I mean by that is this isn't going to be a quick fix, especially like with this sprint as a whole, where we're not focused on monetization. I just want to make it very clear that this is going to be a long-term thing, right? I personally see myself doing this for a minimum of 10 years, right? Once you get to a certain point, yeah, you can outsource content, you can outsource a bunch of different stuff to make it, you really have the choice to change what you do in alignment with the ideal lifestyle that you want to create. But I just want you to know that building a personal brand, it's a thing of time, care, mastery, and just finding the things that you do enjoy and doubling down on those. And so on the right, we're going to go over the agenda. The first thing, we're going to cover the theory with these slides. And so it's just understanding the one-person business model from a high level and learning the principles of building an authoritative brand. The second thing, we're going to run through some examples. I have like 6 to 7 examples of Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram profiles pulled up that we're going to break down and note common patterns. And then the third thing is practice. So everyone should have access. You don't have to have it pulled up right now, but you should have access to the Notion templates from the membership dashboard. And we're going to walk through those, how to fill those out in accordance with what we're learning in this specific call. And then at the end, if we have time, we'll answer helpful questions relating to the call. For those, drop the questions in the chat, but understand that this call in specific, we probably won't have time for a bunch of questions. In the third call, we will definitely have a good chunk of time to answer specific questions relating to anything. But in this one in specific, ask the questions you have as they come up in the chat. Joey will answer them as he can. And it's not like a black or white thing. If we have time, we will go over questions, but I just want to make it known that this call in specific, we have a lot to go over. And so for that sake, let's move on. So let's look at big picture of what we're doing here. So in this call and in this sprint as a whole, we're going over brand and content. We're not really talking about product, but I want to go over like my branding philosophy for a personal brand, because I always talk about, I'm sure many of you align with this, and this is partially a reason why you're here, is because when I talk about branding or building a personal brand, I talk about how you are the niche. I talk about presenting or positioning your brand in a broad way that captures a lot of people that can become interested in the things you have to offer, while still maintaining the content that will nurture people in order to buy your product, right? So the way I think of it is like a funnel, right? Most people think of a funnel as like a landing page, opt-in, some emails, but I want you to zoom out and start to think of just your entire brand as a funnel, right? So top of funnel social media, your brand is meant to capture more people than you're going to sell on a product, right? You're going to sell a certain amount of your audience on a product, but definitely not all of them. And that is not the only reason you're attracting a following, right? You're attracting a following for many more reasons. But the main thing with brand is that you're attracting a broad audience that aligns with your vision, goals, and the skills or interests that will help people reach those goals. We'll understand this with more clarity later, but your branding is mostly communicated on your social media profiles. So things like Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, those are what I consider top of funnel. YouTube and podcasts, those can be considered top of funnel, but at the beginning, I personally highly recommend building on a platform where you have more control over your growth. So Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, possibly TikTok. We'll go over how to actually control that growth in the third call, right? This one we're focused on brand. But big picture, content, after you capture them from your profile and they follow you, or they, let's say, subscribe to a newsletter or something of that sort, your content is what's going to raise them up the customer levels of awareness. So how I paint this, if you haven't studied the customer levels of awareness, you can read about them in Digital Economics 101. But just a brief summary is that stage one is unaware. They're unaware of you. They're unaware of the problem that they have. And then stage two is they become problem aware. And then stage three, it pretty much goes, they're unaware of the problem. They become aware of the problem. They become aware that there is a solution. And then they become aware that there is your solution. And then your content is meant to target that broad range, right? So you're going to be writing more content to target the lower levels where they're unaware of a problem. So you need to introduce them to a problem relating to like either just what you talk about or what you sell. That's a big part of capturing attention in content is aggravating problems that people have. And then slowly with your content over 1, 2, 3+ months of writing that, then you educate your audience to the point of becoming customers by giving them value that raises them up those levels of awareness. And then once you put out a newsletter or a tweet or something related to your offer, the percentage of people that are at the higher levels of awareness where they're aware of your solution and they're ready to buy, those are the people that are going to buy your product, right? So from the lens of a personal brand, rather than like a freelancer that is doing a lot of direct outreach, it's a different game in that sense, because with direct outreach, it's a lot quicker sale, right? And you can still do that as a personal brand, but with content, it's a much slower, more nurtured way of nurturing your audience, right? And so that is mostly done in newsletters, videos, podcasts, tweets, posts, shorts, really any kind of media, anything that you put out. I would highly recommend thinking of the awareness level of the audience that you're targeting. So we'll talk about content more in the second or on Thursday's call. But then product, we're not really talking about this. So just plain and simple, you sell a product or service that targets a specific problem in your main skill or interest. And then the marketing around that comes into play in sales pages, funnels, and promotions. And by promotions, when I say promotions, I usually mean like a call to action in your newsletter or plugging a promotion under a tweet or like in your story on Instagram or something like that, that is pushing people towards signing up for your service or purchasing a product. So the first thing that we need to understand in terms of, again, we're still looking very big picture here, because in order to create a brand, which is top of everything, like the brand from the top down is going to impact content, product, and marketing, right? So if the branding isn't right, then it's going to feel off. You're going to be a bit confused when it comes time to write content. Like I've experienced this many times where something as simple as my bio on social media makes me feel like I can't talk about specific things. And so getting that right just opens up a lot of room for you to master the other things. So from a very big picture, your goals, which will be actually writing all of this stuff out, your goals are your brand in a sense, right? Keep this in mind. But what do you want out of life, and what are you leading people towards, right? A brand has a goal or a vision or a mission that it is trying to achieve, and it is leading your followers towards that, right? And then the next thing, so what are the problems standing in the way of that goal? So this can be a big goal in your life, like your main vision, or it can be a small goal that you're just trying to accomplish today. So if my goal for today is to write 1,000 words, but I'm struggling and I have a problem like writer's block of writing 1,000 words, how can I help myself, or like what advice can I give myself in the form of content and sending that out to help people with writer's block? Preferably it helps me too, but I can talk about that from multiple different angles. It doesn't have to be just like giving myself advice on like how to overcome it. It can be other things relating to that. So the next thing is when you have these problems, you're usually creating a system to overcome it. So as an example, I have a writing product. And so as I was writing and as I was creating Notion systems for myself to improve my writing, and as I learned the nuances and other things through experience and was able to refine that system over time so that I could cut my writing down to 1 to 2 hours in the morning, then it did turn into a profitable product because my unique system that I built for myself made it a lot easier for me to write. And so the marketing starts to lay itself out for your product. Another example of this would be my power planner. I was selling a physical planner at once. And the way I did that is like, I have a goal of being more productive and happy and having clarity in my days. And so I started buying planners. I started experimenting with a bunch of different ones. And eventually I found the main things in those that worked for me and was able to put them into my own planner and start to create one in Notion, or just like on a blank piece of paper. I could start creating this system that would help me. And then I could package that up, throw my own branding on it, and boom, I have a unique planner that I can market in the market, right? And so the benefits of how those systems impacted my life start to lay out the marketing firepower that you can use for that product. So from a big picture, that's how brand, the big vision or goal that you're leading people towards, can start to break down not only into a more structured lifestyle for yourself, in a way where you're solving your own problems and turning the lessons into content and turning the systems into a product, and then reflecting on your experience to turn that into marketing. This is all very important when it comes to you being the niche, right? So if we look on the right here, this is kind of, it's laid out in a similar manner where you have your ideal future in the top right, and then all of the dots along the graph are the problems that you've solved or are solving. And then towards the right is where you are, on the left is where your customer is, and then in the middle where you've solved those problems, that comes through skill acquisition and leads to experience, right? And many people don't realize what experience they have to help other people that are a few steps behind them, right? Because with a planner, it's like all I did was solve my own problem by experimenting with different planners. And that alone gave me the leverage to be able to sell a product to someone who was experiencing the same problem I was like a month or 2 months ago, right? So that's just one thing to consider. There's a lot of limiting beliefs that you'll have to overcome on this journey. Many of you that have been doing this for a bit understand that this is a personal growth journey in itself, just like being a creator, right? Putting yourself out there online, building a name for yourself. It's very closely tied to your life as a whole. So let's start digging into some of the main principles of really anything, right? We're applying this to branding, but intelligent imitation is kind of how I like to frame, and it's like a concept. It's the same concept as steal like an artist, but this is such an important thing to do because it's self-awareness in some aspects, right? So I wrote here, it's kind of structured like a tweet, but success in any domain, not just business, is the cornerstone of your success. So we're going to create a tribe of mentors, reread our favorite books, and immerse ourselves in their best works. We're going to do this in the Notion templates after. And so this is very important. Start building with intention, regardless of your level of experience, right? I talk about this quite a bit in my videos where you want to start building a project so that you can actually encounter real world problems that you can work to solve. Because if you wait to start building something, whether it be a personal brand or writing a blog article or creating a product or whatever it may be, you have to start building it, or else you're just learning to solve problems that you don't have yet. And then when those problems come up, when you actually start building, you're going to have to go back and find that information again anyways. You're going to have to go back and find the specific knowledge in order to overcome that skill. So my advice is always start. and figure it out along the way. That's literally what I'm doing with this sprint. Like I have I have a good amount of experience to like be able to do this in a better way. But like this sprint, it was just an idea. I had it. I built the landing page. I launched it. I got a lot of people interested in it. I have value to give in the sprints. And now we're doing it with this crappy software that I'm going to have to, it works for now, but I'm going to have to go and change it later, right? And so another reason for doing this is when you start building something and you're struggling to build it, new techniques, strategies, and nuances will register in your awareness. So what I mean by this is when you start building a personal brand, that is your soft shift from the consumer mindset to the creator mindset. And when you're reading people's tweets or you're looking at their bio, you are perceiving it from a different lens. So when I start creating my bio, or I created my bio and I don't really like it, but I'm going with it anyway, and I write my first tweet and I don't really like it, but I published it anyway, that is going to be in my head when I'm scrolling the timeline. And I'm going to see someone's tweet and I'll be like, why did this do so well? Or I'm going to look at someone's profile and going to think, why do they have so many followers? Like, what is it? How can I start to reverse engineer this and then take the essence or the lesson of that and incorporate it in my own, right? So when I look at a piece of content and I'm like, wow, this has a lot of engagement, and I understand the principles of content creation that we're going to learn in the second call, then you can look at that piece of content. You could be like, how did this capture their attention? What kind of value is it delivering? And why did they engage? And then when you think through that and you're like, oh, it's because of this, this, and this, then you're not copying the tweet at all. You're just taking the lesson that you learned from intelligent imitation and incorporating that lesson into your own content so it sees success over time, right? So a lot of people get the notion of steal like an artist wrong. And some people, I see this often now that I have like I have a large audience. And so when I see other people, I can see some that just blatantly copy and paste. And that's not what steal like an artist is. So please don't do that. Instead, you're supposed to reverse engineer and like consciously think through, okay, why did this tweet that I really like and want to copy and paste, why did it do so well? And how can I use that lesson to make my own content better over time and practice, right? So once you find these techniques and strategies and nuances, then you experiment with them and you identify the best ones for you. What works and what can you replicate and how can you leverage that for exponential results over the course of 6 to 12 months, right? That's all self-improvement is, or business improvement. Personal growth and business growth are very similar in this aspect where if you have a problem, you should study other people, study the people that you aspire to be like that are doing a similar thing. You kind of experiment with each of their techniques, right? So if you're trying to improve your health, what you would do is you would go and experiment with other diets, and you wouldn't get dogmatic about one specific one that brought you results. You would experiment with a bunch of different ones, take what works from one, and then that gives you like the 0.01% increase because that's something you're able to be consistent with and consistently produce and create and improve your life and solve problems that way. And then over the course of 6 to 12 months, that just compounds, right? It's like the 1% better every day, but you're doing it by taking the techniques and strategies and nuances that work the best for you in all areas of life. In this specific case, branding, right? So this is a cool little graphic right here. We don't have to go too much into it, but in a sense, you're consuming information, you're studying interests, you're self-educating on the skills that you want to make an income with, and then you take those, and with your brand and content, you are just delivering what you know. You're writing what you know through your own lens, right? Experiences, mindset, values, everything that comprises who you are is going to make the difference between you and the next person. So the trap that people fall in here is to kind of, they're trying to take what other people's wrote, take the content that other people wrote, and then write it, just like reword it in a way, rather than rewriting the same idea or lesson from their personal experience, from a mindset they have, from their values, right? So if I see a tweet that did really well on going to the gym, but I have the mindset of like, I only like to go to the gym 3 days a week, then I can talk about it from that lens, right? But express the same message. So just one concept to help illustrate what we're going to be talking about later. And the last slide, I believe, before we dive into some examples to start making some connections, but the domain of mastery, right? This is what your brand is kind of comprised of. And this is how we're going to start to break things down into, as you can see on the right, principles, topics, mentors, connections, real world problems. So this will set us up for easy content creation in the second call, right? So all of these calls are connected. There's a reason we're going over this from very big picture right now. But I didn't even change the text on the left. Well, you can see how we're just running with this right now. But in short, we're going over this in the Notion template. So the main thing to understand right here is you want an interest that makes you money, right? I think that's a given. It's like the Japanese ikigai, where you need the intersections of things you love, things you can do for work, things that can make you an income, etc. So this is, you need an interest that can make you money, but that can really be any interest. This isn't limited, like see beyond what you've been taught so far. This isn't only limited to like freelancing with a marketing skill. This isn't only limited to health coaching, performance coaching. There's many different things that you can do, and you can usually monetize whatever you want, right? So again, with the intelligent imitation that we just talked about, the best thing you can do is, if you have an interest that you plan to monetize, go and find people that are doing the same thing. I don't have a formula for this. You kind of just have to go and like find people over the course of the weeks, like research books, research YouTube channels, research Twitter accounts, and just dig into people's websites, their funnels, their products. What are they selling? How are they selling it? And how can you replicate that, right? Because it's clearly working for them. And so if you were able to reverse engineer what they're doing and to implement and build over time, then you can do a very similar thing. And so the next interest that you have should excite you. And these can overlap, right? If you have one interest that makes you money, excites you, and like you can just see yourself doing that forever, then do that. Like there's no reason for you to choose 1, 2, 3 interests if one does the job, right? The second interest should excite you, because that's what keeps you in the game, right? Just something that you're excited to learn about and pass on lessons. And so for me, that is like spirituality, philosophy, psychology. Those things, to me personally, how would I frame it? Like I personally don't see a way of monetizing those outside of like a book or a specific self-improvement guide or something like that. And that's great. And maybe I can create one down the road. But as of right now, and from my past experience and the skill set and the thing that I've developed over time, the things that I sell are related to branding, marketing, the things that like I got into this game 10 years ago doing, right? And so my second interest that I bring to my personal brand to give myself an edge or some other form of authenticity and just something that I love coming back and writing about every single day, that's philosophy, spirituality, and all of the woo-woo stuff, right? And then the other interest that I recommend going after is a development-based interest, right? I would argue that every single person in this call right now is interested in self-improvement, right? That's just a given, or else you wouldn't be here. You're interested in self-improvement and business improvement. And so learning something that helps you understand that progression of like self-development and business development and being able to stick it out, that's also important. So in the developmental interest, I'd recommend like psychology, because that complements everything else you do, or spirituality, it's the same thing. Philosophy, it's the same thing. And things similar to that. Those are kind of the main things. And so we're going to go over this. There is an entire domain of mastery section in the Notion template that goes over this more in depth. But in short, from those interests, you want to break them each down into principles, topics, mentors that you can study for intelligent imitation, and then connections you can make between them, and then real world problems that you can solve with products, content, etc. Right? So that's big picture overview. Joey, did I miss anything there? That was kind of just like big picture, but what do you think?
No, I can't really think of anything, but one mistake that we see pretty often is that people tend to think that they have to be niche down super far with their interests. Like we always hear this advice of, oh, you got to niche down. You got to be really specific with your content. But when you're thinking about these big 2 or 3 things that are important to you, as Dan just laid out, then you can kind of think of those as bigger umbrellas, right? And then break down those into individual topics. So if you're interested in, say, evolutionary psychology, for example, just because that's something that I'm interested in, I wouldn't necessarily make that one of my big things that I'm like big things at the top. Rather, what I did was I made it more about creativity, because that's really the point of what I talk about when I'm talking about psychology and neuroscience, right? And that was thanks to Dan for telling me about that, making me think of it that way. But you could instead think of that big topic as cognition or something like that, and then those would break down into psychology, neuroscience, maybe some physiology, and how that relates to neuroscience and psychology, and then go from there. So don't get too niche down and specific with the big things that you're talking about. Remember that you can kind of break those down, and then as you have 2 or 3 of these big topics that have some underlying subtopics under them, then as you're looking at those when you need to create content, that'll give you a lot more ideas about things to create tweets and threads, videos, newsletters, articles, and all that stuff on.
Nice. So the reason for everything that we went over just then is it's right at this very moment, especially for the people that are just starting, the main place you're going to be actually using this stuff is on your profile, right? That's where it's going to become very applicable and like where it's going to become like known what your brand is, right? But as I said before, you have to also keep all of these things in mind when you are going to write content or you're doing anything else relating to your brand, right? Because it has to be aligned with the brand vision. Okay? Because it's not like all of the work we do on these calls where you're breaking down your domain of mastery into principles and all these other things. Like that's not something you're going to put in your bio. It's simply setting the scene for better content creation, because content is what you're going to be doing on like a daily, weekly basis. And that is heavily impacted and directed by your brand. And then after that, the product, it's the same thing. It's like following up the funnel. So your content has to align with your brand, your product has to align with your content and product, and they all like funnel down into each other. So that's just one thing. Is this may not seem hyper practical right now. That was just the theory, but over the rest of this call and especially the next calls, you'll understand this on a deeper level. So stick with us here if that didn't make too much sense, right? Because I wouldn't expect it to. And then now we're going to go over some examples so we can start making connections, right? Because as I said, this is for mainly the bio and profile right now, right? We have to like get a feel, because not all of branding is absolutely tangible like a bio, right? So I have a few people pulled up here, and the main people I'm pulling up are people that I believe to be authentic. They strike the balance between authentic, profitable, and authoritative, right? So they have a well-rounded brand where people like Dickie can talk about really whatever he wants. Same thing with Justin Welsh. He's a bit more focused, and then Sahil Bloom as well. But we're going to go through each of these. So for Dickie Bush, let's look at the components of what creates a good profile picture. Dickie is unique here, where he doesn't have like a well-branded banner like Justin Welsh. But this should be a very good thing for you to understand, because it shows you that like it doesn't have to be optimal, right? None of this has to be optimal. It just has to be effective. And your content is going to be doing most of the heavy lifting for you, right? So with Dickie, this is kind of it. It's not like hyper professional, but it illustrates his story, right? Because he used to play football, and I'm guessing what was high school, and then now he's sharing insights, building an education business to 10 million. Oh, he changed that recently, but helped over 10,000 people start writing at Ship 30 for 30 and TypeShare, former BlackRock trader. So you can start to piece together a story. And if you remember from the slides, your brand is your story in a sense. It's what you're leading people towards, and it's where you've come from. So it's relatable. So he was a former BlackRock trader. He used to play football at some time. And now he's sharing insights on building his education business, so Ship 30 for 30 to 10 mil a year, right? So he's leading people towards a desirable goal. That is the exact point with this, is that your brand is a vision or goal, right? That is what people are going to associate it with, and it's going to frame the perception by which they read all of your content. So this is desirable, and it's authoritative, right? And he flexes authority here. So he's helped over 10,000 people start writing at Ship 30 for 30. So not only does he have a broad goal for like what he's sharing insights on and what he's trying to achieve, but it also shows that he's helped other people achieve the goals of starting to write online, right? So that's kind of hitting two different angles for the people that he attracts. And then, of course, he has authority everywhere and a call to action. And one thing, this isn't like an entire growth course in itself, but just one thing to keep in mind, this is what a lot of people struggle with at the beginning, is that at the very beginning, when you're between like 0 and 500 followers, growth is a lot slower. You just have to accept it, right? Because someone goes onto a page like Dickie Bush and they say 321,000, they don't even really have to like read or care about this, right? They just click follow because he has a lot of followers. He talks about writing. Yeah, I'm going to follow him, right? Easy. But someone else who's just starting, they haven't like proven themselves, right? So it takes a bit at the beginning. There isn't much social proof all around, but don't let that discourage you to the point of it not being possible, because someone like Dickie, who has 16,000 plus I'm assuming plus tweets under his belt with the intention of growing an audience, because some people write without the intention of growing an audience, but him improving his content over 16,000 tweets, it counts. It's going to make a huge difference from how Dicky tweets from how a beginner tweets. And you have to be okay with knowing that your tweets are going to suck at the beginning. Your followers are going to be slow, but that's improvement, personal growth as a whole, right? So the next person is Justin Welsh, and he has a much more professional banner here, right? And he is flexing a few different things. So not only is he promoting the Saturday Solopreneur, which is a free newsletter, but he has authority here with 75,000 plus subscribers, getting one audience and business growth tip every Saturday, and then the website. So the banner can either be something personal to you, or it can be super professional. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to tell you that right now. The banner itself just does not really matter, but it can help, right? It helps set the tone for your profile. So the next thing that we have to take into account with every single profile is your profile picture, right? If you follow that intelligent imitation process that we talked about earlier, every single account that you look at that you aspire to be like, their profile picture has intention behind it, right? This has a very specific vibe that Justin is trying to get off. This has a very professional, happy, I don't know another word for it, vibe for Dicky, right? And then some people do very well with just like sitting like a very casual picture, like one you would take off your phone. But that really depends on the vibe of your content, right? I know a lot of people that do well and get a lot of engagement when they talk like they're texting a friend rather than being professional here and talking about business. And so you just have to be mindful of not only the way that you write and the way that you want to write, but how your profile picture in specific reflects that. Now, not everyone can go out and get a professional headshot like this, but everyone can watch a YouTube video on how to take a professional profile picture with your iPhone, and then like how to get background lighting. You can look up the fundamentals or principles of photography. You can make it a project for a day. You can go have your friend take a picture of you on a white background. Maybe you can learn some Photoshop or Canva to touch it up, learn some Lightroom, and just the profile picture is important because this is what people see. When people go to my profile, I feel like I have a very distinct profile picture down here that like people will recognize in an instant, right? Because it stands out a bit and it has that contrast. So another tip just for the case of profile pictures, where you see mine down here, me looking to the right is intentional because I learned in web design, if you look towards your content, they're going to read the content, right? But on a website where like a picture of someone is looking at you, then they're going to look at that person in the eyes, right? So it's a marginal difference, but I like having fun just trying things out. And so looking to the side, I think helps with engagement. It might, but going really quickly over Justin Welsh again. So the diversified solopreneur. So he's given himself a name that he wants to get known by. I know David Perel had something like the writing guy or something like that, but this is optional. You can have fun with this. You can treat all of these as bio structures that you can pull pieces from. So if you're sharing insights, building something or your vision for the future, then you can take this part of the bio and make it your own. If you've helped a certain amount of people, you can add that to your bio. With Justin, he's doing the same thing. He's building a portfolio of one-person businesses to 5 million in revenue, right? That's his vision. That's his goal. That's what he's going to lead people towards. That's his brand. Tweets and threads every day about the process. So that's a very important thing to note when you're writing a profile is what's in it for me? What's in it for the follower, right? Because some people, they will put like the diversified solopreneur, building a portfolio of one-person businesses, I help X do Y without Z, like pitching them on a product. And it's like, okay, but what am I going to learn from following you? Like, what do you talk about? And so right here, it's very clear, tweets and threads about the process of building a portfolio of one-person businesses. Now, Sahil Bloom, professional profile picture, actually a similar banner as Dicky, but you can start to note common patterns here, like what's going on, what works, and how can you use it? That is the entire thing. We want to encourage creativity to an extent here, of course, but if that comes at the expense of ignoring the principles and fundamentals that make branding work, then it's going against the point, right? It's the difference between principles and methods or tactics, right? Tactics and methods are more so the creativity, but you have to have the fundamentals and principles down. And this is a way of understanding those things is by noting common patterns between the people that you aspire to be like. So if you took these 3 people, you looked at their banner, you looked at their profile picture, you looked at their name, you looked at their bio, you can start to see like, okay, how can I start to structure mine in my own way? So we don't have to go over this one too much, but then I also want to show aspects, or let's talk about really quick the three things, or like multiple things that you can include in a profile, right? So the first thing is the what's in it for me. That's what we talked about. And so one way you can do this is, let me pull up my slick whiteboard feature here. But one way you can do this is by, so let's say this is my bio, right? And so one thing that I like to do in terms of like what's in it for me is I used to have this as my bio, but I like to put I write about, what did I say last time? Person businesses, human potential, and psychology, right? And so you can see how this structure alone works for a lot of people that are just starting out, because all you have to do from the domain of mastery that we create is take the three interests, broaden them up a bit so they're relevant and relatable to other people, so they become something that people want to follow. And then you just put, I write about this interest, and this interest. Or you can put, I talk about, tweet about, I give insights on.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
The content on the whiteboard's not showing.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Does that show?
Nope. All I see is it's still showing Sahil's profile, and it's like there's a gray overlay on it, but it's not showing any writing.
Oh, it just disappeared. Ay, ay, ay. What? This doesn't show up.
Nope, I don't see anything.
Okay, well, that sucks.
Well, I did just see a little squiggly fellow.
That was me.
Yeah. In that case, let's go to Notion real quick. But pretty much what I mean right here is just like I write about one-person businesses, human potential, and psychology, right? Or you can put talk about, tweet about, I give insights on, and so really any variation of the above works. And then the next thing that you can include in a profile from the very start. So this is mostly for people that just want to get a first iteration of their profile out there until they start like immersing themselves in their tribe of mentors content, their brands, their products, and pulling certain things from that so they can create a better bio for themselves. So from the domain of mastery that we're going to create, you can just have interest 1, interest 2, interest 3 in your bio. And then you need some form of either your story, so a condensed version of your story. So like Justin Welsh and Dickie Bush, if your goal or your vision in life is to build a $5 million company, then you can write something along those lines. Or if your goal is to scale an education brand to 10 million, then you can write something along those lines. And now we're going to break all of this down in here, but that's what you would fill the next part of your bio with, is just building, just say building a community of 1,000 self-improvers that want more out of life. That's not really goal oriented, but you get the point here, right? So that is those are the main aspects of the profile you want to focus on right now, just to get a first iteration out there. But you can go and look back through these people. And in terms of people that aren't building on Twitter, because I know there are a few, it's the same deal, right? So you go to a channel that you aspire to be like. I love Nathaniel Drew. I've pulled so much inspiration from his content and just the structure. Like this is how I started to structure my newsletters. And then eventually it led to me structuring my YouTube videos that way. So you can see how the process of intelligent imitation is like a meta skill, right? It's better than any course you'll find, because you're going to figure out how to do things your own way by taking the best from the people that are doing what you want to do, right? That is a very important skill. And so in terms of his profile, he has a profile picture. He could be looking the other way, so he's looking at his content. But here you don't really have a bio, but you have an about. So you can look through these. On mine, I really just have like what I talk about. I say, I'm pretty sure on mine, I write about, or I'm obsessed with one-person businesses, psychology, and human potential. I give a little bit of backstory about what I've done, right? And so next one, Ali Abdal, a lot of people know him, but it's the same way. You look at his banner, you know, okay, what is he trying to do here? He's trying to prove his authority. He's not only a podcaster, YouTuber, but an ex-doctor. So he's explaining his story here, right? He went from ex-doctor to YouTuber to podcaster, and then what he does, what's in it for them. On this channel, we discuss ideas, books, and tech that can help us live healthier, happier, and more productive lives. Boom. That's perfect, right? The what's in it for me is so important in terms of people subscribing. I'm not even subscribed. Subscribing to your profile or following your profile, right? It's what's in it for me. What am I going to learn? This explains it very clearly, right? While incorporating their story. So 3 main parts of a social media profile that have to be there are the what's in it for me. So answering that in a relevant way, right? He's not hyper specific here. He says we discuss ideas, books, and tech that can help us live healthier, happier, and more productive lives. This is very broad, right? It can attract a broad amount of people. If you were to say on this channel, we discuss ideas, books, and tech that can help us live the ancestral lifestyle. Well, that's still a bit broad, but like eat raw liver all day, be as, I don't know, you can, it's hard for me to like think in this mode on the spot, but you can assume how people like niche themselves too far down to the point of losing out on followers that would otherwise enjoy their content, right? So keep it broad, keep it relatable. If you're writing something that wouldn't be like, it wouldn't resonate with an absolute beginner in those topics, then I would broaden it up a bit. So the last one, just for some, okay, so the last one, I love behavior hack. Zach, we've talked a bit. We have very similar reels, and he's just a cool dude, right? He's very authentic, and I just want to show you that all of the stuff we're talking about here, I hate to say it, but it's optional, right? It doesn't matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, what matters is that you are, over time, illustrating the importance of the goal you're trying to achieve, solving problems along the way, and helping through your content, which we'll talk about in the second call. That trumps everything. Content trumps everything, right? Your bio can just be follow obsession with beacons.ai. And if your content is polarizing or engaging enough to make them want to instant follow you, that is ideal, but it's not going to happen all the time. So I would recommend from the beginning, just creating a good bio, working on a good profile picture, learning the skills associated with those things. So then once you understand the skills and the rules so well, then you can break the rules in a way that is still going to get you results, right? So this is just one example of how Zach can go against everything that we just talked about here and still see incredible results. But you also have to take into account that Zach is not monetizing right now. He doesn't have a plan to monetize. I believe he is going to soon, but that's just one thing to take into account, is that he isn't putting his potential product like in the mouths of others or in the minds of others. He isn't he doesn't have a direction to funnel his ideas from brand content to product, right? So now let's go over how we can actually start to make sense of all of this in the Notion Hub. So first thing is, I want you to read through this on your own time to understand the domain of mastery better, right? We're not going to be able to do all of this. Like if I read this on the call, it would just take too long. It would be redundant. And if we all did this like workshop on the call, it wouldn't work out that way either. So read the domain of mastery in your own time before you start filling these things out. But as we go through these, the mastery method, I want to talk about why these are applicable and like why you're going to be doing these things. So the very first thing for self-evaluation and understanding, because you have to understand yourself if you want to be able to articulate yourself in the form of a brand online, right? It's just very, self-awareness is very important here. So one thing that you can do is take the MBTI personality test, or you can go to 16personalities.com and you take the test. It's just a few questions. And what I like to frame this as, people who've studied marketing or branding before, it's important to create a customer avatar, right? But if you are the niche, if you are the target customer and writing advice to your past, present, and future self, and you're building a product based on the system that you created for a problem in your life, it makes sense that you're writing, building, and selling to yourself, right? So you should understand yourself and your strengths and weaknesses, your maybe not romantic relationships, but friendships, parenthood. You need to understand yourself to the point of being able to talk to yourself online, right? You're attracting like-minded people, and it's hard to, like, it's impossible to understand this without experience, right? I'm genuine. Once I made this connection, I was genuinely blown away, where I would say 80% of the people that have joined digital economics or modern mastery, they are a similar personality type, right? There are many, I would say like 20 to 30% are the exact same as me. And even more are just related, right? So they're ENFJs or they're protagonists or the same thing, but they're very similar. And I would attribute that to the content that I've been putting out over time. And so I'm assuming that they have the same problems as me. And then my content, product, and brand can start to revolve around that and bring the people to me that I can help most, because I'm an expert at helping myself by that point, right? So this is just something you can go through on your own time to understand yourself. And then you can come back to the Notion Hub and write down what you were. And then from that, you can start to break down the problems in your life right now. Now, not only can these be content ideas going into the next call, but it can also be a potential product in the future, right? So it's just good to become aware of the problems in your life right now and how you plan to overcome those. Now, for the absolute beginners who do not understand what, or they don't know exactly what interests they want to go after, this is a strategy that I pulled from Stephen Kotler from The Art of Impossible. Not his exact strategy, but he has you in the book write down like 20 interests that you want to explore, right? And there's a very good reason behind doing this. So, Joey, actually, do you want to talk about the reason behind doing this? Like, what's the point of writing out a bunch of different interests and then narrowing them down?
Yeah, definitely. So the reason why is you want to have intrinsic or internal motivation for what you're doing. So if you think about maybe the job that you're doing or something you studied in college or something else you have to do on a daily basis that you don't like doing but you have to, that's extrinsic or external motivation, and that doesn't take you very far. It's very hard to force yourself to do something until you have to do it. But what you want to do is build a brand based around something that you're internally motivated to work on. And so how you start doing that is exactly this process where you list out several things that you're interested in. Now, these could be things that you have years of experience in already, or things that you had one thought one day a long time ago that you might want to check out. It doesn't really matter. So just list them all out. And then the next step is looking at how they combine together. And I'm sure Dan's about to go into that actually. But essentially, you want to start digging deeper into these interests to see if they spark excitement and dopamine release in your head, because that's a signal that that's something that you need to go deeper into. So when you're working on something that you're actually really interested and curious and excited about working on, it's going to be so much easier for you to keep yourself working, and you're going to get much better results, higher quality results for yourself, your audience, and your customers, because you actually really care about what it is that you're doing.
Nice. I love it. And yeah, it's so important, because the other thing is, like, a lot of people don't even think about this stuff when they start going into like building a brand, especially like Joey and I are all about sustainability. We want to build things that we can see ourselves doing every day, week, or month, right? If I'm not going to be doing it every single day, week, or month for the foreseeable future of my life, then why am I doing it, right? That is one thing that I want you to question in yourself. But the purpose for interest exploration is, like, people will see online, like, oh yeah, the best side hustle is this, so I'm going to go all in on this. And then 2 months later, they realize, I don't like this at all. I'm going to go to something else. So this, hopefully, writing out 20 interests that you have some form of interest in is going to get your mind moving and like contemplating, okay, what is it actually that I want to start pursuing? And if I start building it now, even if the results aren't going to be as quick as that latest and greatest side hustle, me staying consistent with something that I want to do is going to see more results quicker than me bouncing from one thing to the next and not making any progress, because it doesn't give me that intrinsic motivation to actually see it through, right? There's going to be a lot of lows, and you would preferably be doing something that allows you to work through those lows, right? The vision outweighs today's problem. So with these, it can be broad or specific, right? So if you have experience with the interest, be specific with the parts you want to learn. If you are new to the interest, go broad and put emphasis on the basics and principles. So let's just say mine's psychology, philosophy, music production is something I've always wanted to explore for myself, and I plan to in the future. What's else there? I just say like DJ stuff. I don't know the technical terms. I love fitness and health. I love biohacking. I've been looking into nootropics a lot recently, and I could just go off and off and off. And then even with this, you can start to make some connections. So psychology, biohacking, nootropics, those are along the same lines. Philosophy and music production could connect in some ways. But what we're going to do after you write down these interests, once you get them all out of your head and make yourself aware, like, hey, I actually want to go through and start to eliminate some of these to focus my attention, you're going to evaluate those interests. So what are you already doing on a day-to-day basis that brings you joy? Do you already have experience in one of these interests? If not, which one would you want to start learning about right now? If you have expertise in another area, can you see how this interest, some from up here, can solve a similar problem? Can you see how the topics intersect? What interests are you going to go all in on for the next month? So this is important, right? We're giving ourselves a barrier here, and I want to reiterate that this is mostly for beginners that just don't know, like, hey, what am I going to go all in on? Many of you already know that, and that's awesome, right? But for those that don't, you're going to pick a few interests. Like let's just say 2. Stick to 2 for right now. You're going to pick 2 interests that you're going to go all in on in terms of learning and immersing yourself in that domain, right? And while you're there, you're going to realize, are other people monetizing this interest in some way, right? Does it have utility that can solve a real world problem? And if so, what is it? So how deep of a biological problem can this solve? Is the problem superficial, or does it help people reach their biological needs? So once, like, all of this intersects, right? But the main point here is that you're going to be choosing 1, 2, or 3 interests to go all in on for the next month. And what you're going to do is you're going to write down the 3 books that have impacted your life the most, right? And this, it's dynamic, because I'm trying to find the balance between like beginner and someone who already has their interest chosen. So for this, if you don't have your interest chosen, it's going to be write down 3 books that you want to read related to those interests, right? And then write down 3 social media accounts that relate to those interests. And so for people that already have the interest, you're just going to write down the 3 that you want to emulate. And then same thing with YouTube channels and Medium writers. This is important, right? This may not seem important right now because we haven't dove into every other aspect of the Notion template that we will in other calls, but we're just setting the scene here. I promise, as boring as this may seem, it's extremely important and will help you so much. So what you can do, this is just a guideline that I recommend for actually immersing yourself in the interest. I like purchasing one popular book so you can get the big picture overview of like, why is this interest important? And then the audiobook of that, if you like audiobooks. And then at the same time, what I like to do is I like to read or watch summaries in something like Blinkist or short form, or I can just look up summaries on YouTube and just get very, very familiar with the principles, the big ideas that interest is all about, right? Because those are going to form the foundation of your content. And then the next thing is you kind of work your way down. So you start big and broad with the book. It's kind of like funneling your interest down, but then you subscribe to 2-ish long form resources, so blog or podcast, to learn about the nuances and make connections, right? Because in a blog or a podcast, people aren't really going to be giving out the like straight and to the point principles. They're mostly going to be talking about the nuances that their audience is struggling with. And so it helps to read those on a consistent basis so you can become more aware of the domain as a whole that you're trying to break into, right? You want a very big picture. You want to understand the niche, the domain, the topics on the internet that are being talked about. You want to be able to navigate that very well and be able to contribute to the conversation. And the way you do that is by having the knowledge to do so, right? So you have to research, right? If you don't have ideas, you need to consume. Inputs equal outputs, whatever the cliche advice is. You need to make a habit of just immersing yourself in the things that you want to become good at. Yes. So then even further, going down, subscribe to YouTube channels, follow 3 social media accounts. You can run through this on your own. And then once you are finished with that, right, this is a very self-reflective process, is that you want to come back and review, okay, how was that, right? Did I enjoy researching this interest? Do I want to continue researching this? Am I excited to apply the teachings to my own life? Could I see myself writing about this? Is it hard to shut up when I'm talking about this interest with friends or family? Did you find another interest that plays well with the one you chose, right? So as an example, when I read Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, it kind of, it sends me down the rabbit hole of like entropy, attention, games, all of those different things. And so from that, that's a very good sign that you can just continue researching and digging yourself deeper into becoming an expert in that interest area, right? And these interests can be anything. It's not only related to this. It can be marketing, sales, branding, content, the things you're learning right now, social media in general, right? If those are what you want to learn and want to talk about online, be my guest. But let's look at the next thing. So yeah, as I mentioned, this call is going to be a bit longer than the other ones, but let's talk about your purpose or your vision for the future, right? So this comes from, what is the big problem that you want to solve or have solved in your life? And if you could solve that for other people at scale, would you want to? So this takes a bit of reflection, right? It's hard to know what big problem you want to solve in the entire world, but you can reflect and think on the problems that other people are trying to solve for themselves, right? The big problem. So for you, did you lose a certain amount of weight? Did you get fit? Did you create your own productivity system? Did you grow on social media? I don't know. There's a bunch of different things. Have you learned marketing enough to teach someone else marketing? Have you created a website enough to create a website for someone else, right? So what is the goal that people are trying to achieve? What is the problem standing in the way? And how can you help other people get there, right? So this revolves heavily around your skills and interests. And so then come back to this one, because this one's very difficult to answer, and I don't want this to bring a lot of confusion. But the thing we're trying to do here is, when you're looking at someone else's bio, they have a goal, right? And so that's what we're trying to do here, is understand, what are we working towards? What is all of our content and products leading people towards? And that is usually going to be the vision or goals that you have for the future. And so now you can see from here, what interests, skills, or areas of study can play a role in solving this problem. There will be quite a few. Write out as many as you can. These are related to what you wrote in the mastery method that we just went over. So if your goal is to help people get fit, that can be spun in so many different ways, right? Because there's a lot that comes into play with getting fit, right? It's not only that they need to learn diet. It's not only that they need to learn exercise. It's that they need to understand habit formation. You need to become so good in many different skills in order to help the person achieve that goal by all means possible, right? That's what the best fitness coaches do. Is when we went over the domain of mastery. So it says the developmental skill in the graphic that we went over before, but the developmental skill, like self-improvement or psychology or something like that, is only going to aid in a niche skill like fitness, where it's still necessary to understand what impacts human behavior, because that's all you're trying to do here, is you're trying to spark positive behavior change so people actually get results. And the only way you're going to be able to do that effectively is to understand a developmental interest to pair with the skill that you have the most expertise in, right? So if you pair fitness with psychology, then you can use psychology to help people form better habits around fitness. You know what I'm saying? And Joey can attest to this as well, where he applies psychology to productivity. So he helps people become more productive through positive behavior change, and he knows how to do that well because he studies psychology very well. And so more of this is just like self-reflection, right? It's understanding yourself more. Go through this in your own time. But one thing that you do want to take into account is that we were talking about the intrinsic motivation behind your brand, right? So your why behind your life's work is the story you tell yourself, but the reason, right? The reason for doing what you're doing isn't going to come in an instant. You might have a why right now, like, oh, I want to make money, right? So I want to make money, which is good, but that's going to fade once you achieve that. And so after that, you have to have that new sense of mastery. Why are you on this path, right? So after that, it could be, I'm having trouble. I'm just going to say sustainable fulfillment, something like that. But you can come back as the why start to develop behind what you are doing, right? So the last thing, this is where the vision comes into play. So all of these are important just for understanding your brand from a top-down level. So I highly, highly recommend. I'm actually in this. I'm going to switch this over to here, right? This is mine. I would recommend that you do this for yours. I should have done this at the beginning, but put the vision before life's work because the purpose can throw you off. Because the vision should come first, and what you are leading people towards, and then all of this. So the purpose is the big problem that you're trying to solve in alignment with your purpose. I mean, your vision. And then the arsenal of whys will make a lot more sense as to like, why do I want this stuff, right? The vision becomes more clear. The reason behind your local actions right now, what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, are backed with that intrinsic reasoning. And then once you fill out those questions, you can do the opposite, right? So an anti-vision. And this is very helpful for realizing what you don't want. And one thing that I want you to understand is that all of this is content. All of this can be used as a content idea. And so when we go back through this in the next call, when we're writing content, then it will become much more clear. Like, okay, I can actually start to help people understand what my vision is and then wrap all of my other content up behind that. So run through this. We're getting a bit late on time here, but run through all of these on your own time. And as I mentioned, it's hard to structure this since brand, content, and product are so intertwined, but we have to understand this before we can actually start getting into content, because it's going to make our content that much more powerful. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be impactful. People are going to want to follow along because they know that you're doing it for something bigger than yourself. And it's going to become easier to lead people towards that. So one thing that you can do on your own time is to start to fill in your pillars. We're going to talk about this specifically in the next call, but you want to let me show you how to do this just so you aren't left with just a bunch of questions to answer. So what you're going to do here is you're going to write down your main interests. So let's just say it's psychology. And then you break down the topics, each of them into, so topic 1, breakdown from psychology, is biases. Biases is fun to talk about, but subtopics relating to that would be, Joey, help me out here. Am I starting to? I love
Yeah, so subtopics for psychology could be things like cognitive biases, habit change, for both good and bad habits, patterns of behavior.
Let's do behavior patterns. This will be easier in the next one, but you can start playing around with it. So behavior patterns.
Cognitive biases. Yeah.
That's kind of what the entire thing right here is. But yeah, we'll run through the actual, this will make more sense once we're actually able to break it down, and I can talk about broadening and breaking down the actual things. So, Joey, were there any questions that stood out?
Not really. I've been answering questions pretty much the entire time, so I don't think that there were any that I wasn't able to answer.
Okay, cool. Because the thing with this is it's weird to leave on this note where we only talk about the theory and we looked at examples, but the action steps that I want you to take, because we have much more actionable stuff to go over in the future calls, right? Like actually breaking down topics to write content about, understanding each stage of how you're going to create content from beginner, intermediate, advanced, having a checklist for when you're writing content. The inspiration lab is absolutely essential when it comes to this, and understanding the templates, how to write them, and understanding the nuances of those, having a master swipe file, and then turning one idea into 1,000. So we have a lot to cover in the next call as we did this one, but it will all tie together perfectly well. So let's see. Okay, so there were no questions. I need to find the right thing. All right, I love everyone posting their Twitter. So the recordings will be uploaded. So if you actually registered for the call, with the wonky Webinar Jam link, then you should, if you got email reminders of when the call was going to start, then you're going to get a recording to the call afterwards, right? So it will send you a recording once it's done processing. I don't know how crazy Webinar Jam is or how reliable that is because we haven't done it before, but lost my train of thought. Oh, but if it doesn't send the recording to your email, I'm going to upload it to the dashboard, give instructions, give everything, and then I'm going to send out an email personally, right? So what you can do is you can check back in I would assume by the end of the day. So give me 4 or 5 hours to make sure everything's processed, everything can get uploaded. You'll be able to check each of these along the way. Okay, so another question, will there be a list of people on this call so we can connect outside of the sprint? There isn't a place in specific for that. I don't really have a way of, like, the only thing I would be able to do is give you a list of emails. I can't do that. I got you, Pablo. I'm glad the template is your biggest wet dream. We'll keep it PC, but is there an info at email to send questions to? So if it's like a technical or a support question, send it to Devin, which would just be support@thedanco.com. If it's a question relating to the curriculum, that would be saved for the third call where we have more time to actually answer questions. But other than that, it was stated on the landing page that there isn't a place to ask dedicated questions for this specific curriculum. There isn't a Discord like the other offers that I have. This one is standalone. It's calls, etc. So in terms of like technical or support questions, feel free to reach out to Devin, support@thedanco.com. There's also a link inside the dashboard itself. And then Ryan, yes, recording if we didn't register. Yes, I will send a link to everyone later today. So at maximum 6 hours from now, just so I have everything ready to go. Okay. Joey, any last words? Oh, action steps again. Yes, I did get distracted. Sorry about that. Okay. Action steps. Action steps is to start creating your profile. That's the very first step. Get the first iteration out there, right? So create the best profile picture you can. Check or create a bio with the things that we went over. Fill out the first top row of the Notion templates just to gain more clarity and generate more ideas that can potentially be used in the bio and your other content that we get into in the second call. And then in terms of like action steps for this call in specific, that's it. The next one where we're writing content is the most important thing in all of this. That's where more action steps are going to come in, and we're going to be writing a lot of content. But that's the main thing. Last action step I could give is just follow as many people as possible, buy as many books as possible for the interests and skills that you want to learn and make this work with. It's only going to help if you just flood your brain with useful information so you can make connections as you are building this stuff out. Got you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you all for coming in. Man, I don't really want to, I know this is being recorded. I don't really want to end it because everyone's plugging their Twitter. How could I go about? I'll think of something. Okay, we're going to close the call. I love you guys. I'm going to think of something so that everyone can connect outside of this. I'll send an email or something with a Telegram channel so people can start to connect with each other, meet each other, plug their Instagram, their Twitter, connect. I feel like that would be very helpful. So I'll put something together for that. Appreciate Sean to answer that question last. We're going over writing in the next call, Thursday, 2 days from now, 2 o'clock, same time. Got you. All right. Appreciate you guys. Talk soon.